Hello, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm Sister Cecilia Joy, a Franciscan sister of Christian Charity, and we're here today with Fr Tim Ferguson, who is the chaplain of the Bishop Baraga Association, as well as a priest at St. Joseph and St. Patrick in Escanaba, Michigan. Escanaba, Michigan. So welcome, Fr Tim.
Thanks, it's very good to be here.
Thank you. So being a part of the Bishop Baraga Association, can you talk to us a little bit more about Bishop Baraga? I know he was a snowshoe priest, which makes him sound really exciting, but can you talk to us a bit more about him?
Sure. Bishop Baraga, Frederick Baraga, was born in Slovenia, the latter half of the 18th century, and he was raised in a fairly prosperous family, we would call it middle-class family. His father was a count. Both his parents died when he was relatively young. So he was raised by an uncle, a relative of his, and eventually went to Vienna to study law, with the intention that he would go into government, that he would work within the Austria-Hungarian Empire. While he was studying law in Vienna, he happened across St. Clement Mary Hofbauer, who was preaching in Vienna at the time, and that kind of sparked an interest in the priesthood. So he did get his law degree, but then immediately left and went into the seminary and was ordained a priest in Slovenia and was there for a number of years when he was inspired by the tales of the missionaries here in what was then America. And he decided that he wanted to come and preach, particularly to the Native Americans, the people who, from his perspective, really needed the ministrations of the church, really need to know about Christ. So he came over here in 1830 with very little knowledge of any of the Indian languages, but quickly taught himself, and with the help of some Indian guides, taught himself Ojibwa. In fact, he ended up writing what is still considered one of the definitive dictionaries and grammars of the Ojibwa language. He is also the only U.S. bishop ever to write a pastoral letter in one of the Native American languages. He wrote his first pastoral letter both in English and in Ojibwa. But he came to the United States, came up to northern Michigan, the Upper Peninsula, and the northern part of Wisconsin, which at the time was pretty much the end of the world from most people's perspective. And in this vast territory, he was quite often the only priest for many years. And so he would travel miles and miles and miles. Ideally in the summertime, most of the travel was done over water. He would take canoes, there were even steamboats on the Great Lakes at the time. But in the wintertime, of course, without highways, without jeeps, without anything like that, he traveled hundreds of miles on snowshoes and became known as the snowshoe priest. There's one story that during one trip, one of his snowshoes broke. He was walking all alone, and likely he would have died because he couldn't repair the snowshoe himself. He was pretty much in the middle of nowhere. And just by happenstance, a Native American happened to be coming by the same place and helped him out, helped him repair the snowshoe, got him on the way. There are some instances in his life and ministry, both as a priest and a bishop, that really are miraculous, that he would cover vast territory in a relatively short period of time in order to bring people the sacraments, in order to bring people the Eucharist and the Word of God. So he was just a tireless a fighter for the rights of the Native Americans. He used his background in law to help. At the time that he was a priest up here, the US government was in the process of moving many of the Native American tribes to Oklahoma. Bishop Baraga was very instrumental in helping ensure that the Ojibwa stayed here in the Upper Peninsula, but also just preaching the faith. And as the demographics changed, as more and more European settlers came in, he also adjusted, and I think he cared for the European settlers here in the Upper Peninsula just as much as the Native Americans that he loved so dearly.
And did he influence your vocation at all?
He did. He did. I'm a odd man. I went into the seminary straight out of high school, and I was in the seminary for 7 years. Then I left the seminary in 1992, and as I say, I took 20 years off. During that 20 years, I did a number of things. I worked at restaurants. I worked at a gold mining company. I ended up working in a parish as a secretary. Ended up getting my degree in canon law. And then in 2012, Bishop Sample, who was then the bishop up here, invited me to return to priestly formation. So I was ordained in 2015. In the time between leaving the seminary in 92 and returning in 2013, among the three people that I really looked to for patrons for discernment was Bishop Baraga, Saint Benedict Joseph Labre, and then venerable, now blessed Solanus Casey. So coming up here to visit the shrine of Bishop Baraga, visiting his tomb, asking for his intercession, asking for his guidance, and certainly just being inspired by reading about him. There are some wonderful books available about Bishop Baraga. Most of them you can find through the Bishop Baraga Association website. But there's he's just a commanding presence up here. And I wish, and it's our hope for the Baraga Association, that people outside of the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, Northern Michigan, Wisconsin, that everyone comes to know Bishop Baraga, because even though he's very special to us, I think he's somebody that can lead a lot of people to Christ. His motto was, one thing is necessary, unum est necessarium, saying that our relationship with the Lord really is the only thing that matters. And he lived that motto to the hilt. He was a man who was so devoted to the Lord.
Now with him, he was made venerable, declared venerable in 2012.
Yep.
Can you tell us anything about, because I think the next step is blessed, correct?
Exactly. And for someone to move from venerable to blessed, the church needs proof of a miracle that's been worked through his intercession. So there are some miraculous occurrences during his life, but what we have to do is we have to prove that a miracle took place after his death through his intercession. We've had a couple cases that are pretty good. We currently have a case in Rome right now that is under investigation. It's been a little bit hampered because of the COVID situation. Things have been slowed down. I think it's a wonderful case. I'm not, because of the circumstances, I'm not really at liberty to share a lot of the details of it, but it truly is a miraculous healing. I've looked at some of the evidence that we have. I think that there's no doubt that this is a miracle that's been invoked through Bishop Baraga's intercession. Hopefully the medical commission in Rome will look favorably on that, and then the whole congregation will also look favorably on that. And hopefully soon we'll be pulling the rest of our hair out, trying to pull together a beatification ceremony. But Len McKean, who's the director of the Baraga Association, is always very quick to say, we know Bishop Baraga is in heaven. Bishop Baraga doesn't need to be made a saint for himself. And this will all happen in God's time. Hopefully, for many of us, hopefully it will happen soon. But there have been cases of saints who have waited hundreds of years before their canonization. Others we know have gone very quickly. It's all in God's time, and I think Len often says that Bishop Baraga is waiting for us to be properly prepared for the case to move forward. It's not a matter of him dilly-dallying or us dilly-dallying. We certainly want things to move forward quickly, but we need to be patient, and we need to let God have his way.
Yeah, and as sisters, we sometimes, when we travel through the Marquette Diocese, sometimes we stop at the Bishop Baraga. I don't know what the official word is, but we do see his where he's buried, and
Yep, yep.
it's really a peaceful place to be, and just to see this holy man and be inspired by him. So thank you.
And one of the more recent events in the last year and a half or so, just up from the cathedral is where Bishop Baraga is buried, but just 2 blocks up from the cathedral, the Baraga Association has taken the home that he died in and turned it into the Bishop Baraga Educational Center. There's a beautiful prayer garden in the back with the Stations of the Cross, with the Rosary Walk, with just some peaceful peaceful setting for prayer. But the house itself, we've preserved the room that Bishop Baraga died in as sort of a memorial to him. But there's also a display of some of the artifacts from his life, some of the vestments. There's a beautiful deer hide leather vestment that the Native Americans made for him with just really beautiful, intricate beadwork on it. But that's a wonderful place if you're ever in Marquette to stop in and visit.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being with us, Father Tim. You're a wealth of knowledge, and it's really great to learn more about Bishop Baraga and his
Thank you. And check out the Bishop Baraga Association website. It's just Bishop Baraga, all one word, .org. Bishop Baraga.org.
Awesome, and I'll include that in our post too, so that'll be
Wonderful,
great for people
wonderful.
to see. So thank you so
Thank
much,
you so
everyone,
much.
thank you so much, everyone, for watching. We hope you have a great rest of the day. Bye, everyone.
Okay.